But of course, once my children were born here, I began to feel at home. And this is
Paul Newman once dropped a bombshell, his personal list of the 8 most beautiful women of all time. Those famous blue eyes didn't just charm the world, they saw everything. For decades, Newman wasn't just Hollywood's king of cool. He was the symbol of timeless masculine beauty. But what truly made him stand out was how he defined beauty itself. He didn't just admire faces, he understood souls. A close friend who knew him for over 40 years spilled the truth. Paul didn't see just looks, he saw character, brains, and that rare spark that made some women unforgettable. Imagine that. While most men in Hollywood were blinded by glamour, Newman looked way deeper. After years of marriage to Joanne Woodward and a career surrounded by the most breathtaking women on screen, Paul still had a totally different view of beauty. He once famously said, "Why go out for hamburger when you have steak at home?" A quote that became legendary among directors and actors who worked with him. But that didn't mean he ignored beauty around him, not at all. He just appreciated it differently. And tonight, we're diving into the list that only Paul Newman himself could have created. The 8 women he believed were the most beautiful of all time. These weren't just stunning faces. They were women whose presence, talent, and spirit left Newman in awe. Get ready, because this list goes way beyond looks. It's about the kind of beauty that sticks in your mind forever. Joanne Woodward, the woman who owned Paul Newman's heart and kept him coming home, no matter what. Whenever Newman talked about the most beautiful women in the world, his list always started and ended with one name, Joanne Woodward, his partner for 50 incredible years. In a town where marriages often crumbled faster than a bad movie script, theirs was the rare Hollywood love story that actually lasted. A longtime family friend who knew them for decades confirmed it. Paul might talk about beautiful women, sure, but when it came to Joanne, everything about him softened. His tone changed, his eyes lit up, and suddenly, it wasn't just admiration, it was devotion. We all know his legendary line, "Why go out for a hamburger when you have steak at home?" And yeah, it's iconic. But insiders say that joke barely captured what he really felt. Newman saw something in Woodward that went way beyond appearance. Her beauty wasn't loud or flashy. It stayed with you. In one rare, deeply honest interview, Paul confessed, "Joanne had this kind of beauty that revealed itself over time. The first time you met her, you thought, she's attractive. By the 10th time, you realized you were in the presence of someone truly extraordinary. That's the kind of admiration most people only dream of." Unlike the glamorous co-stars he shared the screen with, Joanne's charm was all about what Newman called intelligent beauty, that rare mix of stunning looks, razor-sharp wit, and artistic grace that made her unforgettable. It wasn't just love, it was pure respect wrapped in passion. What Paul Newman had with Joanne Woodward was something way deeper than surface-level prettiness. It was the kind of beauty that stayed with you. A director who worked closely with both of them once said, "Joanne was stunning, but she was never defined by her looks." She had brains, grace, and an Oscar before Paul even got serious about acting. That blend of raw talent and natural beauty created a spark that kept Newman endlessly fascinated. Their love wasn't some picture-perfect fairy tale. It was real, with all the mess that comes with it. Newman's struggles with drinking caused tension at times, and the heartbreaking loss of their son, Scott, in 1978 nearly broke them. But even in the darkest moments, Paul's admiration for Joanne, her strength, her spirit, and her beauty never faded. One close friend remembered seeing them together in their 70s and catching Paul gazing at Joanne across a crowded room, eyes full of pure wonder. It wasn't some nostalgic longing for how she looked decades earlier. It was total appreciation for who she had become. That's rare, especially in Hollywood, where so many chase youth. It's the only thing that matters. To Newman, Joanne represented a kind of beauty that grew with time. a beauty layered with wisdom, shared memories, and resilience. Her allure didn't fade, it evolved. In a world obsessed with perfection, Paul saw something different. Beauty that matured, deepened, and told a story. His love for Joanne wasn't just romantic. It redefined what real beauty means. As we shift from the deep personal bond that shaped Paul Newman's life, we step into a different world, one defined by pure, almost untouchable elegance. This next woman didn't just shine on screen. She became actual royalty. Grace Kelly, the woman who could silence an entire room without saying a word. When Newman worked with her in 1958 on The Left-Handed Gun, he met someone who was already halfway between Hollywood legend and royal icon. She had just married Prince Rainier III of Monaco and was wrapping up her final film before leaving the spotlight forever to step into her new life as Princess Grace of Monaco. Talk about a real-life fairy tale. One crew member from that set remembered it vividly. Paul said she was the kind of woman you can't forget 5 minutes after meeting her. There was something almost unreal about Grace. While movie sets were full of noise, chaos, and constant chatter, she floated through it all with this calm, graceful presence that made everyone else look like they were rushing for no reason. Newman's admiration for her went way beyond her stunning looks. It was her composure, her quiet power that fascinated him. While most actresses fought for attention, Grace didn't need to. She owned the moment just by being there.
But of course, once my children were born here, I began to feel at home. And this is
That effortless confidence, that poised elegance. It set her apart from everyone else in Hollywood. To Newman, Grace Kelly wasn't just beautiful. She was breathtakingly rare. She looked like silence in a loud room, Paul Newman reportedly told a friend after working with Grace Kelly. And that one line says everything. Grace didn't need to raise her voice or make an entrance that screamed for attention. She just was. Wherever she went, her calm presence had this strange power. Everything and everyone around her suddenly felt slightly off balance, like the world couldn't quite match her stillness. That kind of composure wasn't a Hollywood act. It was who she truly was. Raised in a well-off Philadelphia family with deep roots in tradition and social grace, Grace Kelly carried herself with a refinement that felt like it had been transported straight from another time. She wasn't trying to be elegant. She simply embodied it. A film historian once shared Newman's observation. Paul said Grace Kelly was the only actress he ever met who felt more natural as a princess than as a movie star. And he meant it as the highest form of respect. Her elegance wasn't something she turned on for the cameras. It was woven into her very being. Becoming Princess Grace of Monaco wasn't a transformation. It was destiny fitting perfectly into place. What truly fascinated Newman was how Grace's beauty didn't depend on Hollywood magic. While many actresses relied on perfect lighting, makeup, and flawless camera angles, Grace looked exactly the same anywhere. Elegant, cool, regal, every single time. Someone who worked with her during those years remembered, most beautiful women need the right setup to shine. Grace? She looked the same walking through the commissary at lunch as she did under studio lights. That's the kind of beauty you can't manufacture. The kind that doesn't fade, doesn't need polish, and doesn't ask for attention. Grace Kelly didn't just look royal. She was royalty from the inside out. For Paul Newman, Grace Kelly represented a rare kind of American paradox. A woman who lived with humble grace, but carried herself with a natural nobility that made her transformation into European royalty feel destined. Her beauty wasn't just about perfect features, it came from how flawlessly her inner strength matched her outer elegance. But now we move from calm grace to something explosive. If Grace Kelly was cool composure, then our next icon was pure fire. Elizabeth Taylor, the woman who could detonate a room the second she walked in. If Grace floated through Hollywood like silk, Elizabeth stormed through it like thunder. Newman never shared a movie set with her, but he crossed paths with her many times throughout their careers. And every time, She left a mark he couldn't shake. It wasn't just her beauty that captivated him. It was the raw, magnetic energy that came with it. A producer who knew them both during the 1960s once said, Newman admired her intensity and those violet eyes that could burn right through you. While so many actresses tried to appear untouchably perfect, Elizabeth Taylor was the opposite. She embraced her flaws, her emotions, her chaos. She didn't hide her passion. She wore it like armor. Every glance, every movement, every word carried that wild spark that dared the world to keep up with her. To Newman, Elizabeth wasn't just another beautiful face. She was a force of nature, a woman who made beauty feel dangerous, alive, and absolutely unforgettable. Elizabeth Taylor's beauty was the kind that stopped time. Those famous violet eyes, a genetic rarity, weren't just mesmerizing. They were hypnotic. You couldn't look away. But Paul Newman saw beyond the shimmer. He recognized that her true allure came from how she lived, raw, fearless, and completely unapologetic. Her beauty wasn't just skin deep. It came from her emotional fire, her courage through endless health battles, and her refusal to ever tone herself down for anyone.
Marital togetherness. I think
especially if you have.
She didn't enter a room. She detonated it, Newman reportedly said after seeing her at a Hollywood event, and that line became legend. There were women who wanted to be admired from afar, not Elizabeth. She wanted to be felt, up close. She wanted every single person near her to react, whether it was attraction, intimidation, or flat-out envy. That's what made Taylor so dangerously magnetic in an era when studios polished their actresses into perfect porcelain dolls. While others were coached to maintain flawless public images, Elizabeth flipped the script. She lived her truth out loud, her string of marriages, her health struggles, her changing body, her wild passion for causes she believed in. She never hid a thing. One close friend once said she was volcanic beautiful, the kind of beauty that burns everything in its path. And Newman, he respected that deeply. He admired how Elizabeth never masked the messy parts of her life. While so many stars worked overtime to look picture perfect, she faced every struggle, every heartbreak, right in the public eye, with unmatched bravery. To Paul, that kind of honesty was its own kind of beauty, fierce, authentic, and real. Elizabeth Taylor didn't let Hollywood decide when her story was over. She aged openly, proudly, without chasing youth or hiding from cameras. That was her power, and Newman found it absolutely extraordinary. What truly impressed Paul Newman was how Elizabeth Taylor defied Hollywood's cruel clock. In an industry that tossed women aside the moment they aged past their prime, Taylor did the exact opposite. She kept shining brighter. She commanded attention and earned respect through every stage of her life. A director who had worked with both of them once shared, Paul said Elizabeth was the only star he ever knew who actually enjoyed growing older, and that line said it all. She didn't battle age with fear or fake youth like so many in the business. She embraced every chapter, letting it become part of who she was. That level of self-acceptance blew Newman away. It was beauty with confidence and zero apologies. To Paul, Elizabeth represented courageous beauty, the kind that didn't just come from perfect skin or famous eyes, but from living authentically, scars and all. She was real in a world built on illusion, and that made her unforgettable. In an era when studios tried to mold every actress into the same flawless product, Taylor refused to be managed, staged, or softened. She was wild, passionate, complicated, and that's what made her electric. And as we move from Taylor's fierce American fire, we cross into international glamour, a different kind of magnetism, earthy, sensual, and impossibly confident. Sophia Loren, the woman who made men irrelevant. When Newman worked with her in the 1967 film Lady L, he saw firsthand the full force of the Italian icon who had completely conquered Hollywood. Loren wasn't just beautiful. She was power, passion, and elegance rolled into one unstoppable presence. Sophia Loren never had to become part of Hollywood. She conquered it on her own terms. What struck Paul Newman most about her wasn't just the obvious, her stunning looks, but the powerful self-possession she carried everywhere she went. A crew member who worked on Lady L remembered Newman once saying, "She had the kind of face that makes you forget your name." And he meant it. But Sophia's beauty went way beyond the surface. It came from her presence. She had this rare confidence, this calm certainty about who she was that made her beauty feel like just one piece of a much bigger magnetic whole. She wasn't defined by her looks. She owned them as part of her full, unapologetic identity. Unlike many international actresses who tried to soften their roots to blend into Hollywood, Loren refused to hide where she came from. She wore her Italian pride like armor, her rich accent, her natural curves that defied Hollywood's obsession with thinness, and her fiery passion for both work and life were all part of her magic. She didn't change for the industry. She made the industry change for her. A director who worked with both stars once said Sophia brought a completely different kind of beauty to the screen, one that was bold, womanly, and full of soul. She wasn't trying to fit an American mold. She was real, intellectual, and sensual, all at once. Newman was deeply impressed by how Loren never made herself smaller to make others comfortable.
My autobiography, and this was did go on the air about.
She walked through Hollywood like she belonged there, never bowing to the endless scrutiny or impossible standards that crushed so many others. To Paul, Sophia Loren was living proof that true beauty isn't about pleasing anyone. It's about knowing exactly who you are and daring the world to deal with it. Every man in the room became irrelevant the moment she walked in, Paul Newman reportedly said after seeing Sophia Loren at a movie premiere. And that line perfectly captured her power. What made Sophia so extraordinary wasn't just her face or figure. It was that she never needed anyone's approval to feel beautiful. She carried herself with this calm certainty, this unshakable belief that she was enough, exactly as she was. Her beauty came alive when she performed, not because she posed perfectly, but because she felt everything. Unlike many actresses who protected their image with carefully controlled expressions, Sophia wasn't afraid to get real. She laughed hard, she cried openly, she let her face show every emotion. It wasn't about perfection. It was about truth. Someone who knew both her and Newman said it best. Paul admired that Sophia was an actress first and a beauty second. While others hesitated to take roles that could make them look messy, tired, or broken, Sophia dove right in. If the character demanded it, she transformed, disheveled hair, raw emotions, everything on full display. That fearlessness made her beauty real. It wasn't something she guarded. It was something she lived. Newman loved that about her. To him, Sophia represented a uniquely European idea of beauty, one that embraced confidence, sensuality, and the grace that comes with maturity. In a Hollywood obsessed with eternal youth and surgical perfection, Loren stood out as proof that beauty didn't need to be frozen in time. It could grow, deepen, and evolve, just like a great performance. To Newman, Sophia Loren wasn't just gorgeous. She was timeless, powerful, and completely unbothered by the rules everyone else followed. Sophia Loren's ease with herself created a beauty that didn't fade. It grew with time. But from Loren's refined sensuality, Paul Newman's admiration shifted toward a completely different kind of allure, raw, wild, and revolutionary. This next woman didn't just change what beauty meant in cinema, she rewrote it. Brigitte Bardot, the hypnotic rule breaker. Even though Newman never worked with her directly, he, like the rest of the world, was captivated by her impact. In the late 1950s and early 60s, Bardot burst onto the scene like a storm, introducing a new kind of beauty, natural, unfiltered, and completely untamed. She shattered Hollywood's perfect, polished mold with one defiant look. A close friend who often talked movies with Newman remembered him saying Bardot had that raw, undone look, like the rules didn't apply to her. And that was exactly it. What made her revolutionary wasn't just her physical appeal, it was how she carried it. She didn't move like a star carefully sculpted by a studio. She moved like a woman living entirely for herself. Before Bardot, female stars were managed to perfection. Every strand of hair in place, makeup flawless, every move choreographed to please the camera. Then Bardot came along and blew that idea to pieces. She was messy, spontaneous, and magnetic. Her tousled hair, bare feet, and effortless energy screamed rebellion. After watching And God Created Woman, the film that made Bardot an international sensation, Newman reportedly said, "She wasn't polished, she was hypnotic." And that was the truth. Most actresses seemed to beg for the audience's admiration, but Bardot didn't care if you liked her. She wasn't performing beauty, she was living it. To Newman, Bardot embodied freedom, a woman so unapologetically herself that she made perfection look boring.
How do you pronounce your name?
Brigitte Bardot.
Brigitte Bardot. And when were you born?
28th of September.
She didn't ask for validation, she just existed in her own wild rhythm, and somehow that made her unforgettable. Brigitte Bardot wasn't just beautiful, she was revolutionary. Her very existence on screen signaled the arrival of a new era. To Paul Newman, Bardot represented something bigger than movie star glamour. She was the spark that lit the fuse of the 1960s sexual revolution. Her beauty wasn't about perfection, it was about freedom. She made femininity feel wild, self-owned, and real, not a performance crafted for anyone else's approval. A film historian who had spoken with Newman once explained, he admired how raw and unfiltered her beauty was. Before Bardot, even the most stunning actresses carried this air of control. They knew they were being watched and shaped their every move around that awareness. But Bardot, she moved like she'd forgotten the camera existed. That unself-conscious energy made her magnetic. She didn't act for attention, she just was. Her influence exploded far beyond her movies. The Bardot look, the tousled blonde hair, the effortless makeup with heavy eyes and that casual, sensual style completely changed beauty standards of the time. Suddenly, women didn't have to be polished, perfect, and posed. They could be spontaneous, carefree, and confidently themselves. For Newman, Bardot wasn't just a movie star, she was beauty as rebellion. She challenged a system built on artifice by doing the one thing no one expected, being authentic. Her natural appeal didn't feel rehearsed. It felt like a revolution wrapped in lipstick and laughter. In a world that demanded women be poised and proper, Bardot's effortless sensuality broke every rule. She proved that true allure doesn't come from being flawless. It comes from being free. And from Bardot's wild, natural beauty, Newman's gaze would shift once again. This time to another woman whose allure came not from rebellion, but from mystery. From bold rebellion, Paul Newman's attention turned toward something softer. A beauty made of grace, elegance, and a glow that felt almost otherworldly. This wasn't fire or thunder. This was light. Audrey Hepburn, the woman who floated. Among all the women on Newman's list, Audrey stood out as the most unexpected. At a time when Hollywood celebrated curves and sultry glamour, Hepburn rewrote the rules with her slender frame, delicate features, and dancer-like poise. She didn't need to be loud to be captivating. She had that quiet kind of beauty that pulled you in without even trying. Someone who worked with both stars once said, Audrey was graceful, kind, and striking in her own quiet way. Most Hollywood beauties demanded attention, but Audrey made you lean closer. Newman was fascinated by that difference, by how her presence didn't shout, it invited. Her unconventional looks were once seen as a risk. Studio executives in the 1950s actually worried she didn't fit the Marilyn Monroe mold, too slim, too delicate, too different. But that very uniqueness became her power. Audrey didn't chase the standard, she redefined it. A director who once discussed Hepburn with Newman recalled his words perfectly. He praised her eyes. Eyes that looked like they'd seen another world. And he wasn't exaggerating. Audrey's gaze carried a mix of innocence and wisdom, fragility and strength.
You don't give me everything I want, you give me everything you want to give me.
It made people believe she understood life in a deeper way. To Newman, Hepburn's beauty wasn't about perfection or sensuality, it was about presence. She embodied a kind of luminous calm that made everything around her feel softer. In an industry obsessed with boldness, Audrey proved that quiet could be powerful. She didn't command a room, she enchanted it. There was something hauntingly deep in Audrey Hepburn's gaze, a quiet knowing that seemed far beyond her years. Part of it came from the hardships she faced growing up during wartime in Europe. But much of it was simply who she was. That perfect blend of vulnerability and wisdom fascinated Paul Newman. He saw in her a beauty that wasn't just visual, but emotional. Unlike so many stars who use their looks as a form of power, Hepburn's relationship with beauty was rooted in humility. She didn't flaunt it, she softened it. In interviews, she often brushed off compliments about her appearance, turning the spotlight toward her work and her humanitarian efforts instead. She never chased the image of a sex symbol that others desperately tried to maintain. She didn't need to. She didn't flirt. She floated, Newman reportedly said after attending an event where Audrey appeared. And that line captured her essence perfectly. Most beautiful women in Hollywood moved like they knew the world was watching, every gesture calculated to impress. But Audrey, she glided through space like she was weightless, completely unaware of her own magic. Watching her wasn't just captivating, it was peaceful. That same natural grace followed her through every stage of her life. While others fought aging with surgery, filters, and frantic reinvention, Hepburn embraced it quietly and with dignity. She didn't vanish when her youth faded. She simply evolved. In her later years, Audrey turned her energy toward humanitarian work with UNICEF, traveling the world to help children in need. And through it all, she allowed herself to age naturally, her spirit shining brighter than any spotlight ever could. To Paul, that was the purest kind of beauty, one that time couldn't touch. Hepburn didn't just age gracefully, she aged authentically, proving that real elegance has nothing to do with youth and everything to do with soul. Paul Newman once said that Audrey Hepburn was the only beautiful woman I knew who became more, not less, herself with age, according to a close friend who remembered their conversations. While so many stars seemed to fade when their youthful glow disappeared, Audrey only became stronger, more radiant in her authenticity. She grew into the person she was always meant to be. Her later life was defined not by red carpets, but by compassion. Her tireless work with children through UNICEF, her quiet dignity, and the grace with which she faced her own mortality. Everything about her reflected a kind of beauty that had nothing to do with mirrors or makeup. To Newman, Audrey embodied beauty as character made visible. Her kindness, humility, and inner strength turned her into something far greater than an icon. She was a living portrait of grace. Newman admired that her appeal couldn't be summed up by measurements or features. It wasn't her figure or face that made her unforgettable. It was how seamlessly her inner goodness and outer elegance came together. Audrey Hepburn was beauty with a heartbeat, and that's what set her apart. But from Hepburn's ethereal glow, Newman's admiration shifted once again, this time toward a completely different force of nature, one that didn't float through rooms. She owned them, Lauren Bacall, the most dangerous woman in a cocktail dress. Newman crossed paths with Bacall several times throughout his career, though they never shared the screen. What captivated him wasn't just her classic looks, but her power. From her very first film, Bacall carried herself with a level of confidence that demanded attention. She wasn't just beautiful, she was formidable. And then there was that voice, low, smoky, and unforgettable, the kind that could stop any conversation cold. Lauren Bacall didn't just enter Hollywood, she commanded it with sophistication, cool defiance, and a strength that was all her own. Those eyes. Paul Newman once said, "She could unnerve you with one glance," recalled a producer who had worked with both of them. And that line says it all. Lauren Bacall didn't just look at you, she sized you up. From the second she appeared on screen, she exuded control, completely composed, totally aware of her own power. While most young actresses carried a hint of nervous energy or a desire to please, Bacall, even at just 19, had none of that. She didn't chase approval, she commanded it. Some of that confidence was crafted early on. Director Howard Hawks famously coached the young, anxious Bacall to drop her voice lower, slow her movements, and master stillness. It was meant to shape her into something cool and deliberate, but it didn't stay a technique for long. It became her. That smoky voice, that piercing stare, that razor-sharp poise. It all fused into Lauren Bacall's true identity, a woman who moved through Hollywood like she owned every inch of the room. Someone who'd seen Newman and Bacall interact at industry events, once recalling her the most dangerous woman in a cocktail dress.
The first one, of course, gave me a life, so that obviously is the most special.
And no, it wasn't an insult. It was pure admiration. What he meant was that Lauren had the rare ability to enter a space and shift its energy instantly. She didn't rely on flirting or traditional glamour. Her magnetism came from intelligence, sharp wit, and a confidence that never wavered. Unlike many of her contemporaries who leaned on prettiness or seduction, Bacall built her allure through attitude. That famous look, chin tilted down, eyes raised with a teasing spark, became iconic. Her dry humor, her fearless banter, and her refusal to shrink around powerful men made her stand out in an industry where women were often expected to stay quiet or soft. She didn't try to be beautiful, she tried to win, Newman reportedly said after rewatching one of her classic films with Humphrey Bogart. And she did. What made Lauren Bacall extraordinary wasn't just her face or her voice. It was the way she turned presence into power. She didn't need permission to shine. She decided she would. And the world couldn't look away. What made Lauren Bacall so unforgettable was that she never seemed to be chasing approval. From her very first scene in To Have and Have Not, she didn't play second to Humphrey Bogart. She matched him, line for line, glance for glance. She wasn't an accessory. She was an equal. That confidence gave her a kind of beauty that no amount of makeup or styling could replicate, a strength that radiated from within. Even in her earliest roles, Bacall felt ahead of her time. While many actresses of the 1940s and 50s were written as reflections of the men around them, Bacall flipped the script. Her characters had their own minds, their own fire, their own boundaries. She didn't bend or play submissive. She stood tall, sharp, and self-assured. That independence only made her more captivating. For Newman, Bacall represented beauty as strength made visible. She was living proof that real allure came from character, from a woman's ability to own her presence without apology. Her beauty wasn't about symmetry or softness. It was about conviction. She embodied a kind of power that gave her looks deeper meaning, not just something to admire, but something to respect. Lauren Bacall didn't fit inside Hollywood's idea of what beauty should be. She redefined it. She showed that a woman could take up space, stand her ground, and still leave every man in the room speechless. And from Bacall's sophisticated cool, Newman's fascination shifted one last time to a new kind of star for a new era. The 1970s brought a different energy to Hollywood. Raw emotion, messy truth, and heartbreak you could feel. Ali MacGraw. The look of heartbreak before it happened. Paul Newman encountered her during the early 70s when Hollywood was transforming. The glossy glamour of the past was fading, replaced by something more real, more human. MacGraw's beauty wasn't perfect or polished. It was vulnerable. And that's what made it unforgettable. Ali MacGraw perfectly embodied the evolution of beauty in a changing Hollywood. Her fresh-faced simplicity and emotional openness created a brand new kind of screen appeal, one that felt real. A director who once spoke with Newman about shifting film ideals in the 70s recalled, he admired Ali's rawness and vulnerability. She arrived right when audiences were tired of all the polish and perfection. They wanted truth, and she gave it to them. Unlike the stars of earlier decades whose images were carefully crafted in studio boardrooms, McGraw's beauty felt discovered, not designed. She didn't look manufactured. She looked human, and that made her instantly relatable. You could see yourself in her. When she broke through with her role in Love Story in 1970, she became the face of a new era.
How did it go?
One where beauty wasn't about flawlessness, but about feeling. She was the opposite of the composed, untouchable icons of old Hollywood. Ali wore her emotions openly, and that raw honesty made her mesmerizing. A friend who once watched Newman react to her on screen remembered. He said she had eyes that could make a man rethink his entire life. That was her power, quiet, piercing, and painfully sincere. What fascinated Newman most wasn't just Ali's looks, but how she communicated emotion through her face. No acting tricks, no barriers, no masks. Everything she felt poured straight through her expressions. She didn't build walls to protect herself the way so many stars did. She let you in. That transparency created a rare sense of intimacy between her and the audience. Watching Ali MacGraw felt personal, almost private, like she was sharing a secret you weren't supposed to hear. To Newman, that kind of authenticity was its own form of beauty. The kind that didn't dazzle you with perfection, but disarmed you with honesty. Ali MacGraw's emotional openness gave her a magic that few could match. In romantic dramas, she didn't just play love, she felt it, and that raw emotion reached straight through the screen. Her honesty connected with audiences in a way that more technically polished but emotionally distant actresses simply couldn't. Her beauty wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. She didn't hide behind the role. She became it. After watching Love Story, Newman reportedly said, "She looked like heartbreak before it happened." And that line says everything. Most actresses tried to hide their vulnerability, fearing it might make them seem weak or less glamorous. But Ali flipped that idea upside down. She made vulnerability her power. She let herself feel deeply, and that made her not just beautiful, but unforgettable. For Paul Newman, Ali MacGraw symbolized a major turning point, the evolution of what beauty meant in American cinema. She represented a cultural shift, from the polished, untouchable glamour of the studio era to a new kind of authenticity that reflected the emotional honesty of the 1970s. Her beauty wasn't in her flawless features, but in the humanity that radiated through her. You didn't just see her, you felt her. As we look back at Newman's reflections on these 8 extraordinary women, one truth becomes clear. His idea of beauty wasn't about symmetry, perfection, or surface. It was about substance. Each woman on his list carried something deeper, a spark of individuality that made her impossible to forget. From Joanne Woodward's enduring grace that kept his heart loyal for half a century, to Grace Kelly's regal calm, from Elizabeth Taylor's volcanic passion to Sophia Loren's confident sensuality, from Brigitte Bardot's wild freedom to Audrey Hepburn's luminous kindness, from Lauren Bacall's unshakable strength to Ali MacGraw's tender honesty, Newman's choices reveal something profound. To him, beauty wasn't a photograph, it was a story, a mix of depth, intellect, emotion, and authenticity that couldn't be manufactured. In Paul Newman's eyes, true beauty wasn't just seen, it was felt. From Audrey Hepburn's ethereal grace to Lauren Bacall's commanding strength and Ali MacGraw's emotional honesty, Paul Newman saw beauty in every dimension. He understood that real beauty wasn't one note, it lived on multiple levels at once. What made his perspective so rare wasn't just that he was one of Hollywood's most admired icons, but that he actually thought deeply about what made certain women unforgettable in an industry obsessed with looks. Newman refused to stop at the surface. He admired beauty that was alive, driven by wit, confidence, and emotional truth. A longtime friend once said, "He was married, he was faithful, but he wasn't blind." And that says it all. Paul could admire a woman's beauty without reducing her to it. His fascination came from understanding that the most powerful kind of beauty doesn't exist alone, it grows out of character. Each woman who made his list was more than a stunning face. She was a complete person. Their beauty wasn't just in their looks, but in their choices, their integrity, and their individuality. Newman saw something real in them, something that went beyond the camera lens and into the core of who they were. To him, true beauty was character made visible, a seamless blend of how someone looked, thought, and carried themselves. It was the spark of authenticity that couldn't be faked or staged. That belief shaped not only how he viewed women on screen, but how he lived his own life. His legendary devotion to Joanne Woodward wasn't just about romance. It was proof of what he valued most: substance, loyalty, and real connection. Newman's reflections remind us that beauty fades, fame changes, but character, that's eternal. To Paul Newman, beauty wasn't about perfection, it was about truth, and that's why his list still speaks volumes today. Paul Newman's reflections on beauty revealed something profound: his belief that true beauty deepens rather than fades with time. To him, it wasn't about chasing youth or perfection, but about the way shared experiences, love, and wisdom could make a person even more beautiful as the years went by. It was a view completely opposite to Hollywood's usual obsession with novelty and age, and it showed just how differently Newman saw the world. For anyone who wants to understand the man behind those legendary blue eyes, this insight says it all. Paul Newman wasn't just a movie star, he was a thinker, a feeler, and someone who looked past appearances to see truth. His perspective on beauty gives us a rare glimpse into the heart of a man who valued authenticity over illusion, depth over glamour, and connection over fame. He recognized that real beauty lives in the way a person moves through life, not just how they look under studio lights. Throughout his remarkable journey in film and beyond, Newman's respect for the women who crossed his path reflected his humanity and his deep appreciation for what made each of them unique. He saw them not as stars, but as souls, brilliant, complex, and endlessly fascinating. If you enjoyed diving into Paul Newman's timeless view on beauty, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, and drop a comment below.